So it didn't solve all the way through, but I found a solution that is working now. And mainly the only thing that I had to do was to disable the multi-threaded option because so apparently multi-threaded requires shared array buffer or something like that, which is a feature on browsers that has a lot of vulnerabilities. So that's the reason why when you use that, you need to have like a bunch of these headers and stuff like that, which gives a bunch of problems. So I decided that it's just easier to leave single-threaded. And in order to do this, you have to compile the engine with a different flag to use that as the template. And then I also had another problem because I changed the way that the engine works on this stuff that I'm developing. So I basically removed the main pack flag, and the web version requires the main pack. So I'm just gonna go over the code there and explain like how do I think that the final exported web version works and how the compilation for the web works. Then I'm gonna show the one that I have there. And the other thing that I found is that they provide a example they provide a server example to test that they use on the editor as well. But I didn't test with that one. I tested with the one that I have there, which is I got from ChatGPT. So, I erased I closed the original one. So the one that I'm developing here, I'm calling it Celerity. I basically just I copied the original one from the point that I had before, and I decided to do like separately from the original one because I removed a bunch of things. So I removed everything related to GDScript and C#, and I also changed the main setup function. So like for the stuff that I'm doing, I think it's probably better to do it separately. But it's basically the same thing for as far as everything else goes. I don't know why it's not opening here. That's weird. Oh. So I'm just gonna show. So this is the server example from Godot, and the one that I'm using is the server.py here, which is a lot simpler. But basically, all that it does here, I think, is just sets the headers of the cars to enforce these restrictions here if you want to use them with the threaded. But I'm gonna use the simple server there. Then I have to go to localhost. Also, the thing that I saw is that they recommend that you use the index as the name, which I forgot, but it makes sense. So on the web, whenever you have websites, the index HTML and the index.js is usually considered by the compilers or transpilers as like the main file on a folder. So it's like the entry points by convention. So they recommend you to use this name, and I think it makes sense. Yeah, so this is pretty cool. So you're basically able to get whatever app you build on the web by doing this. It's very nice. The difference is, so I have to develop, like, for example, here I tested this directory here. The way that I did the code is going to look for the documents, I think, on the operational system. But obviously, since it's a web, it's going to look for a different folder. So if you want to develop something with the web in mind, you have to use the macros that they provide, which is web-defined macro. So the way that I think that this works, the compilation works. So this that I'm running here is the exported version of the project that I have there on my thing. I'll close here, which basically generates these files. So the way that I think that it works is like this index wasm here is going to be the compiled version of the engine. So it's as if you have the engine. And this other code that they have here is like the interface. So it's the API between the browser and the engine. So it's just like some small codes, the minimal amount of code to interact, to bridge the gap between the WASP and the browser. And the way that this works is based on, I found this image here on a video that they were explaining WebAssembly. So the way that it works is as far as I understand, I could be wrong because I haven't seen the actual source code for the browsers yet. But I'm pretty confident that this is the case. So they do something that is called JIT compiler, which is basically compiling the code on runtime. So you create a parser that, based on the text, which is the code, is gonna generate some intermediate representation through this process here until it gets the code to the assembly version of the architecture, whatever architecture the browser is being run on. Then once you have the assembly is basically just a human language for the machine code, and then the machine code is able to run the code. So they're basically so WebAssembly is basically creating a compiler for this process that injects directly on this machine graph here. So the way that it is normally done, you have JavaScript, then JavaScript is compiled, I think, to JavaScript graphs, then inline lowering, then you have the optimizer, and then it generates this machine graph. From the machine graph, generates probably an intermediate language or something like that, and then it goes through assembly. So what WASM does, and I think that WASM is based on LLVM, and LLVM is a low-level virtual machine, I think it stands for, but it's basically C++ code, C++ software that allows you to create languages for all these different architectures. So it gives you like tools to build your own language, basically. And what they did, as far as I understand, is they use this LLVM in order to create this language that allows you to take other languages, like any language, Rust or whatever, then you compile the language to this assembly language, which is this WebAssembly language, and then this WebAssembly language is fed directly into this machine graph. So that's how it's possible to. So it's like bridging the gap between JavaScript and whatever language you want through this other compiler here that is integrated through the browser. So they are connected on this part of the process. And that's how it's possible to create. So I haven't looked too deep into this, but as far as I understand, what Godot is doing is going to use this M scripting, which is an SDK you have to download. And M scripting is just a variation of this WebAssembly compiler. So it's a like C or C++ compiler that is going to compile the code down to WebAssembly. That's basically what this SDK is going to do. And what Godot does is that through the build system is going to compile all the engine code into that WebAssembly file that you have there. And then it's going to use these other files here that they wrote manually on the engine to serve as the API. So this is the zip that is generated at the end. So the other parts that are not the WAS parts are basically the parts that they coded here. And then they're just gonna like copy and paste this onto the final exported version or the final compiled version from the engine. So it's gonna be basically these files plus the WASM, which is the compiled C++ for the engine into WebAssembly. And this is all that you need. So they have the HTML here, I think, as well. And if you want, you can use a custom HTML based on the export system that they have there. Not sure if the HTML is here. No, I think the HTML they build on the export system. So they use C++ to build the code for the HTML files on the exports. But the one that matters for the stuff that I was doing, I think is on this file. Don't remember. Maybe it's this one. Yeah, so it's here. So this function here, they manually code this, like I said. But this is like the API. I think it's a class that works as an API between the JavaScript parts and the WebAssembly parts. So this function just initialize the configurations for the engine. The engine is initialized, so they build the HTML on the export system. The HTML file is going to have a script that is going to initialize the engine class, The engine class is just a WebAssembly, is using the WebAssembly file to get the code, which is the C++ code that the engine has, compiled down to WebAssembly. So the function there, the start game function, yeah, so basically this is like the main class, I think. And the start game function is the function that is gonna initialize the engine. And the way that it works is that it calls this init here by passing the path of the executable, which is gonna be in my case index, and it's gonna pass these arguments here. So it's basically executing the engine, as if it's building the command line to execute the engine. And then it's gonna pass those arguments. And this is one of the things that it was a problem there, because the way that it initializes, it relies on the main package. And I didn't want to spend a bunch of time trying to figure out how to embed the WASM. I think it shouldn't be that hard to embed the package data on the WASM. All I have to do probably is on the export system, just do the same thing that they do on normal executables, you just manually write to the WASM file. But it might be different because of the nuances of the compilation process. So what I decided to do is just put this flag back again on my thing, and I make it based on the macro for the web. And then the pack is gonna be based on the export system. So I'm gonna briefly explain there. It's very similar to the other ones, the export system. And the way that the build system for Godot is gonna figure out the platforms is gonna be, each platform has a detect.py file. So depending on the target you put here, so the editor is gonna be the editor obviously, but the other ones, I think that's, I'm not sure. Oh, the other important part is the threads. So I use this command here to build. So in order to build the final exported executable with no threads, not using threads, you have to build the baseline first, which is the base thing that they're going to use to build the exported version after, by passing this threads equals no here. So this is going to be build a compiled version of the engine for the web with no threads. So it's basically going to do what I said. It's going to compile the engine into WebAssembly and save on a WASM file. Then, based on the predetermined pattern that they have there for the name on this cons code, and it's gonna copy and paste the other files, or maybe compile all the files into one. So all the JavaScript files that they have, they're gonna put the codes into one file, and then at the end you're gonna get that this file is here. But mainly the zip is the one that is going to be used on the export system. So this, in the same way that the other export system works, this works as the baseline for creating the final export. So this already has the engine code. And if you build with multi-threading, then you're going to have to figure out on the server side how to make it work. So the macro is this one. So if you want code only to run when you're compiling for the web, you put this macro here, because they're gonna set this macro to true on one of the files there. These cons are SC sub files for the web. I don't remember which file it is, but I know that it is somewhere here. Yeah, so it is here. So this CPP defines here makes scones define the macro as it's building the C++ files. So when you build for the web, it's going to define this, and then it's going to include the code. If you don't build for the web, then it doesn't include the code. And the thing that I don't like, the process that I had to figure out, or like the debate I had on my mind, is because of vulnerabilities. So whenever you allow more input vectors on the stuff that you're doing, it increases the vulnerability, because it increases the attack surface. So the main cause of attacks, obviously, probably the only cause of attacks possible, is on the moment that the system you build interfaces with the with outside, obviously. So the concern that I had was by allowing this flag here, it essentially allows anyone to put any package they want into the engine, and then obviously it allows them to like hack basically because it's gonna execute their code. So basically figure out stuff, but then I realized that it's basically the same thing for the normal package. So like unless you make everything embedded, but even if you make everything embedded, there isn't like a very good way to like escape because if someone knows what they're doing, they're gonna be able to reverse engineer anyway. But I don't think that it matters that much because it's about time and like you're better off building your own stuff than to spend a bunch of time trying to figure out what someone else is doing and then try to copy them because when you're copying people you're always going to be behind them. So I think that it's just an attractor state of space-time. Like it doesn't matter. It is what a lot of people don't understand about like vibe coding and stuff like that. It's not that it doesn't work, is that if everyone can easily reproduce something, so like if you can click a button and tell the AI to do everything, there's two problems. One is that you don't own anything, the AI does own because the AI is the thing that builds everything. And the other is everyone's gonna be able to do exactly the same thing. So there is no incentive to exchange energy because everyone can build everything on their own. So there's always going to be, because the fundamental nature of space-time, I think, like on the delta of, because the main function of markets is to save energy. I think that's probably the main reason why markets work and they are scalable, because they allow you to save energy. So it's more about building something that saves people time. So I think that it doesn't matter that much. But obviously it depends, it really depends on the application and what you're gonna do. And yeah, putting like extra layers should make it harder. Makes sense, I think, because then it makes the process lower for people to reverse engineer stuff like that. But and ChatGPT said if you, which I agree, if you do the server right, then it's harder to swap the package because of encryption. So encryption and like the checksums of the communication protocols. So it's like there's other protection mechanisms that I forgot the name, but don't allow you to swap the file and do other stuff. But there are other vulnerabilities. So I think it's kind of unavoidable based on the way that they build the engine. And based on the way that computers work, I think. But this one, so since the JavaScript file, the way that they start the game uses this flag here, this is gonna be the path of the package, how the engine is gonna find the package, and it's gonna be the first thing that it looks for. So when you use the main pack flag, it's gonna go over this process here. Another thing that I wasn't like I'm still not 100% sure is that when I comment out this code here was still not working, which should work because the one of the files had this like the file had the same name as the WASM file. And all the files had the same name, so it should be able to get the package from that file. But I think it might be different because it's on the web, so the way that it gets the name or the way that it gets the engine name might be different. So I decided that it doesn't make sense to spend a lot of time figuring this out. It's better to just do the easiest way for now. The export is basically the same thing for the other ones. So like the save pack function is the same. The only difference is that you don't embed because you want to save everything on the .package file. And the other ones are different because they build the HTML. So up until here is the same. So you just pass the template path. It's going to be the path of the zip file you have here that you build first using mscripting as the SDK and using that command there. Another interesting thing is that when you compile for a web, you get different warnings and errors than when you compile usually. So this is gonna save all the resources for the project on the package file. Then here, I think this file is gonna take the zip that you pass as the path here for the template, and it's gonna extract the files from the zip because we're gonna use that later. Yeah, and this one is gonna be the one that creates the HTML. So they write the HTML file with C++ using metaprogramming. And here, comment out, but you can put a custom HTML path. So the HTML is just gonna have these configurations, and it's gonna have the necessary code to run the JavaScript scripts that they have on the source. And I find the engine, the WAS file as well. And the rest is easy. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy about that. So now what I'm gonna do is I think I'm gonna close everything. So for now, obviously I might have to change in the future. But I think for now I have this system where I can automatically export for Windows on web after developing this thing. So I think the best thing to do now, so there's two things that I wanted to do. One of them is to change the scale. I have to see. Maybe there is a lot of problems in doing that, but I think it should be easier based on the way that I'm thinking about implementing. So hopefully it's easier, and then I can move on to the other stuff, but obviously you never know. But I think that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna try to implement the scale thing on the dockable layouts. And after that, I'm going to try to implement a borderless navbar. So like on VS Code here, like this is the stuff that I'm trying to achieve because I want more real estate for the actual application. So on Godot, it shows the OS window for the close and minimize buttons here. But on VS Code, they replace that with their own navbar. So I want to see if I can achieve this. I think for the thing, I'm gonna use the symbol crafter as an example. Shortcuts. So I did the shortcuts based on I think maybe we can call that. Yeah, so this. I'm gonna copy this one there. Oh, there was one. I think that it was this one. Let's go inputs. Okay. So I basically copied the editor settings class and changed the name to use the same system on my thing there. And that class has these things that they also use on the editor, but I just changed the name, which allow you to put shortcuts. So it basically subscribes the shortcut into another class, which what I'm going to do here as well. That just see. I think it's gonna be control something. I'll put it at the end here. So I'm gonna do control plus and control minus. Maybe I should search for on the editor one to see how they do it. It's probably gonna be plus. I'm gonna search on the editor. So this subscribes uses a shortcut class to put on the settings class. Then it allows you to check to see if the key exists on the input class, on the input function. Then if it exists, you call another function. So that's what I'm gonna try to do. Hmm. So it's probably based on the it's probably based on menus, the way that they do it. Hmm. Let's do this. I'm gonna open another. So before delete, actually I don't need. I need to know the key. It's probably gonna be command control. Yeah, commander control and then plus and minus. Yeah, minus. Zoom in and out. I'm just gonna use minus and plus. So I'm gonna copy this one. Gonna put pattern based on the same style there, or ball layouts. Scale. Probably have a refresh here or something like that. I think you can just call this create thing. And we're just gonna call this function. So I set the scale and call this function. Actually, puts us. Yeah, that should be. Actually, Is this? Oh, that's this. I should print here. So basically, the way that I'm thinking about, so the BM scale is the same class that they use, just with the name changed. Is a It's not a singleton, but it is a class that has a static variable. That is this one. So it basically just manages this variable, and then I'm caching this on the configuration of the layout. So I had one problem before that it wasn't changing because of the configuration when it was saving, but like that's what's supposed to do. But if I change on runtime, I think that it is gonna work. So this is the other function that's gonna store these paths here. So it's basically like I think it's just a key value pair. So it's like a hash that is gonna keep track of the value, which is the shortcut with this. So whenever this shortcut runs, it's gonna call this function, and you need to set this. You need to set this to true, otherwise it doesn't call the function, I think. So if it calls the function, then this is gonna get the shortcuts. If it is this pattern here, then it's gonna run whatever it is inside of the condition. So just gonna change the value of the scale. This is gonna put the limits for like this is the minimum amount, this is the maximum. Then this is gonna get the current scale and it's gonna set the current scale. Then I'm calling this, and this function is gonna update the theme. So the thing that it might not work is that I didn't do all the classes that I have on the module that I have there to depend on this scale. I think as far as I remember, maybe I changed, and the thing might fail as well. Yeah, so it's not working. It went to 0 and then. Hmm. This is weird. Yeah, so there's something weird going on when it goes below. I think that the function that GPT gave there doesn't work. So I'm gonna have to think more about this. Yeah, it doesn't make sense because it's zero here, but this is the delta. So this is supposed to get this scale. So like the problem this so I think that on the editor the way that they do it is by propagating the notification to change the theme on each one instead of setting the theme again, which obviously I think is better as well. But then they have a custom notification. And the problem with that is that I'm not really sure if it's the best. Because the issue is that you have to remember which class to put the thing. That's why I think it's not very. It makes more sense to put it on a centralized place because then obviously you only need to remember one place to change the or to update the values. It should update everything else. The thing I don't understand, so it goes to either 0 or 1. Like here it should be 1 in the beginning. Yeah, I think that this is just gonna. But if it is getting the minimum value, it doesn't make sense to use this function here. If it's getting the minimum value, it shouldn't be 0 because it's. And also it's not changing the classes as well. So it should be changing the fonts. And it's just gonna get the value there. Doesn't make sense. So let me think. It doesn't work. I'm just gonna do if else because it's easier to think about. The thing that is weird is that when I put Control Plus, it doesn't do anything. So obviously something might be because it's zero, but it wouldn't make sense. Yeah, so I'm gonna. I'll be right back. When I when I'm back, I'm gonna test this. If it doesn't work, I'm gonna go over with the debugger. Oh, I think I understand what is going on. I think it's because of the. Also don't get why it's crash. But I think it's because of the configuration. Because when was testing things, I changed the theme to 0.1. I think this is the reason why. No, it seems to be one. Oh, I think that's the reason why they put equal there. Because I think that the way that the reason why it's not working when I press Control Plus is because I'm is the same key that has the equal sign. So I think that the by default that's gonna be like Godot's gonna associate that with the equal and not with the plus. So the plus is probably the one on the num lock numbers. So I think that's the reason why it's not running the plus there. But there's something else obviously that is weird that is going on. So it looks like the new scale should be minimum 0.1 as it is here. No, I'm doing it wrong. It's not the new scale. It's the BM scale. That should be. Yeah, I'm just gonna do it the easiest way possible. I'll think about this later. It doesn't really matter that much anyway. And I also need to call this later as well. Otherwise, it doesn't work. That should be after. I think like obviously if I call here is not very good because then it's gonna call regardless of what keyword is pressed. But I don't want to think about the best if else condition right now. Because I can put either this or on an if outside and then I put or I can make it based on a variable. But it doesn't matter that much when you scale. And does make more sense to do the way that I was doing before. I actually don't need to do anything. Oh, actually, I need. So that should be the current one plus the delta. It's weird. It doesn't make sense because the thing depends on the scale. And I tested this, so I know that it changes the values. Like it changes the way that it looks. So what I think is happening is that because of the way that I'm building the scene, it doesn't find it has a configuration somehow, but the configuration doesn't have the value. I should print a path. That makes more sense. Actually. Hmm. What can I find? It's just easier to ask ChatGPT, but I think this probably works to print a path. So I'm gonna print I'm gonna print a path of the user there to see what project is it from. The other thing that doesn't make sense is that it should be changing anyway. Because if the value is 0, it's gonna be smaller than 0.1, so it should change to 0.1. Oh, it should be dev, I think. I think it's this one. Yeah, this one doesn't have. So why is it? Oh, it's here. Oh, so it is saving correctly. Hmm. I think I had some issue that is similar, and I think it's because of the way, depending where you change the current project, I think it's because of this. Hmm. Then maybe it should be before. Yeah, this was something that I didn't understand. Like I did it this way because that's how the editor does it. But I didn't understand how they don't initialize the class, and I assume it's because like it implicitly initializes when you include the header on a file. So the moment that they include the header on the editor, it initializes the class, which initializes the static value. Maybe, so I think it might be better to save the configuration on the class itself instead of saving on the dockable layout. That's probably better. It doesn't make any sense. Oh, it's not changing the thing. That's why. Hmm. Oh, thing current scale. So I know for sure that it does change depending on what value you put there. But if this is 0, it doesn't make sense. I don't understand why 0 is a variant. So I should have a default here. Oh, that's why. Yeah, I changed the function, I think. I think I was using another function. Or maybe it's the editor thing. That's why it's not changing. Oh, I think I don't remember now. There's was some function here to change the default scale asset base. Maybe it's this thing. Was here. Yeah, was this thing. Default value. Yeah, I commented on it. Yeah. So, because this was messing up the thing that I had there. Yeah, so it's this part here. This makes it here. So I'm just gonna copy everything here. So I think because of this, when you set the default font size based on the scale, then it changes, and you set base scale as well. Then it changes the appearance of the thing. And then for the rest of the stuff, it has to be based on each class. So I think that the main values that matter are minimum size, custom. On the control nodes, you usually use set custom minimum size, set custom min size. So you have to make that based on the scale as well. And I think that on the maybe on the notification or the notification theme changed, you have to do something. That's how the editor does it, at least. Then when you change the value of the theme, it changes the classes. I think that's how it works. But there's still like something that is confusing. So here I'm not really sure. Like it should be getting the value. So the config for is for the dev path there. They updated that. So it's basically this file here that is getting. And here it is caching the scale. So, but it looks like it's getting 0 there from the load config. So this is the thing that is confusing me. And I also don't understand why it's crashing. So now it looks like the font is smaller, but it's still 0 here, so it doesn't make sense. The increment scale is 0. So if it is 0, it should be like much lower, I think. The other thing, oh, it's because I'm not calling the function anymore. Oh, it might be, it's because I'm printing with the digits. That's why. It should be F, I think. So maybe it is working, just I'm printing the wrong way. the yeah. Oh, I also need to go back to call and create theme there, I think. I'm gonna test like this first. There's something weird. I think that it takes a lot of time to initialize the team again, so it's probably not the best to do this. I'm gonna test like this first. I'm gonna comment this on, or gonna uncomment this. Then I'm gonna think about a different strategy. If it is true, is low, or if it's crashing. So now it seems that it's one, which should be okay. So now it is working. It's changing. Yeah. So it is saving here. So it's still not getting the value. Or maybe it is getting. So it's getting the default value. Change this. Yeah, so I'm gonna see what happens when I uncomment. Yeah, so now it seems that it's correct. So it's like crashing again. I think it's just taking a long time. So I have to think about, or maybe something else going. So how can I change this? I guess instead of changing the whole thing, I can create a function that just updates the value of the font. And that's what I'm gonna do. It changed here, but it doesn't change anything. Yeah. I'm not gonna spend too much time on this because it doesn't matter that much. It's not that big of a deal. As I can figure out later, and I'm more focused on the other stuff which matters more. But if it would be nice if I could get this out of the way now. So what I'm gonna do is just do this here. Set font size. Yeah. And I call this one stan. So I'm gonna do without calling this but first, but then I'm going to do this. Over here. I think that the fonts, the main thing that matters for the thing, and the rest of the stuff has to be on a class by class basis, or the minimum size. And for the other stuff that you can scale up and down is based on 3D and 2D worlds. So 2D is going to be on the canvas item, you have to set the value. And 3D is going to be something similar. But I think that for those kinds of things, it's probably better to like create a logic inside of the thing based on the mouse. It makes more sense, I think. So I think like 2D and 3D should be more the same game oriented, and the control nodes, the IDE parts of the stuff should be more for the like based on the original IDE logic. So I think it makes more sense to just leave the minimum size of the control nodes based on the BM scale and the font size of the nodes. And then for the simulations, you make it based on the mouse, or it's going to depend on a case by case basis, depending on what kind of component, what kind of class I create. Ah, nice. Let's go. It does seem to be. It is a little bit slow, but doesn't matter that much. Does seem to decrease and increase. Nice. Yeah, so what I'm gonna do now is focus on the navbar. So navbar is gonna be here. So one of the annoying things is that I'm going to put here whatever to like I can copy paste everything because I have to maintain the one that I have there. Yes, got these ones. I just realized that. Like mm. No, actually, I'm building everything inside of here. So the question is, because the problem is that I'm building a class and then I'm building the the question. One of the questions is whether or not you put the logic for creating the buttons on a class, which I think it doesn't make sense. I think it makes more sense to put. Yeah. So the question is like how to merge the two. So I have the like customize styles and other things like different buttons options should be. Yeah, so there's stuff that's gonna be much better if I do it generic for every navbar than other stuff that's gonna depend on the class. The question is whether or not I should create everything inside of one class and then make it based on the control flow of the class should change. I think that doesn't scale very well. So it makes more sense. Because the main difference, I think the variance that comes from the navbar is gonna be on the options, which kind of menus you use, and the signals that are connected to those menus. So maybe it does make sense to create a generic class because it's always the same thing. So I should create a generic. I should put everything on the class and then make it based on functions and on variables. So like I can add the options externally from the class and then connect the signals as well. Yeah, but this is one of the issues. So I would have to like move this outside and then create a function on navbar that puts, or I can add the classes outside as well. Mm. So I'm gonna draw this on SkyDraw, so just to make it easier to think about. But I think I get the right idea already. So there's stuff that is going to be common for all of them, and stuff that is gonna be unique. And I think I need to. So like the main points that vary are gonna be main menus. I'll do this main menu separate. And these main menus have the I'm gonna draw this in a way that it gives me. I should have two colors, one for variance and the other one for structure. The variance is data, the structure is algorithms. It's a menu bar. Yeah, I think this problem is that the yeah, maybe like this. So the line is obviously on these ones, and I think that's all. And maybe additional components. So I'm gonna draw there. So based on this, I think I should create one class and then figure out the bridge by putting the functions. I think I'm gonna change the name of this class to standard navbar instead. Then I'm gonna refactor this class so that it has a structure. And the problem is this like callback functions. So this is the challenge as obvious as always is to figure out what is the best way to organize so that I'm gonna figure out how to ask ChatGPT. I'm gonna be right back. I'm gonna think more about this. I think that the issue is that it's gonna be too hard to make the logic generic because everything depends on the classes that are gonna be connected to the. Like you have both the signals and the options that have to be connected, and this forces the thing to be on the class. Unless I make everything, but even if I make everything based on signals, I think that I can make it work by making everything based on variables and then creating vectors to loop over. But I think it seems overly complicated, so there must be another path that is simpler. But it doesn't make a lot of sense to create a specific class for each thing. Yeah, so I think for the menu options, I'm gonna have to make like a unique class for each option, for each kind of options, because they're gonna use different classes. And then I put the window logic on here and connect them based on the navbar here. The thing is, it makes more sense to put the classes, put these classes inside of the navbar. That is the problem. Like, I think it makes more sense to create a standard navbar class that has this structure, which is the blue parts, and then figure out how to put the other classes as part of the other one. The main issue is that so like if I structure everything based on signals, there is still kind of annoying because then you have to create generic functions that are gonna change based on the. So like you can make a function that receives a variant as an argument or a bunch of variants, and then based on that creates the function to emit the signal. But it's not very good. And I'm trying to avoid the inheritance approach. Then maybe the inheritance is the best. So you create the base class that has a structure, then you derive from that class and you implement the. I think this is gonna have to be inheritance. Yes. Nice, worked. So obviously the buttons here are weird, but I can use icons. And I can't drag because I don't have the thing. I'm gonna close the application. And test other buttons. Nice. Huh. This one worked. Yeah, so I think that it is making it full. Hmm. The thing is, when it initializes the Godot still has the. So I'm gonna ask where. So what I'm gonna do is just leave this class. So I'm gonna erase the stuff that I did here. I'm gonna create another class, then move the stuff that I did to the other class and go back to the previous version on this one. Then I'm gonna use the other class. And then I'm gonna make this class inherit from the other one. Because I do think that this is probably the best approach. Like the only issue is that it's not very scalable, I think. But I think it doesn't matter that much because I'm not gonna have too many different navbars, I think. Like maybe instead of calling ID navbar, the problem is there is actually a lot of variance because each menu option is gonna depend a lot on this thing, so it's unique to this thing. So maybe there will be a lot of navbars, and then inheritance becomes a problem because then you have to create a new class every time you create a new navbar. Is not very good. It makes a lot more sense to make it based on a function, because then I can do on a project by project or on a scene by scene basis. Maybe I should do it based on. I think I'm gonna do the other class anyway. To, but I think I should do it based on variables, either on the initialization or on a function. Then I store the variables on the class. Then based on the variables I generate. So it would be like numbers that determine the amount of menu bars. So I need the amount of menu bars and the pop-up menus for each one. And I guess I can connect outside of the class. And the problem is that they require this callback function, which has to be on the class. And then, like, there isn't any easy way to make it generic while using templates and stuff like that. That's the issue. Like, I guess I can do the same thing that they do in the classes and like we receive as an argument the option. So the moment I think they do this on the Yeah, it's kind of like this thing here. So pass this and you pass this thing. Pop-up menu. Yeah, so, but it's kind of different though. I think that the most straightforward approach is definitely this one. So create a base class and then you inherit because it makes it a lot easier to connect the signals and to create custom classes that are going to be attached to the options on the menus. But the issue and the concern that I have with this is that like we're gonna have to create a unique navbar for each thing, and then it doesn't scale. And this is kind of the problem because like the navbar has to be. I don't think I can make it in a way that is always like flexible. Like there are certain things obviously that you can do like that, like choosing the folder or a file. Those would be or saving a file. Those can be generic because it doesn't matter which application it is. You just make it based on signals. So from the navbar standpoint, you just connect the. You just always create a dialog class inside of the navbar. Then you open the dialogues, and when you confirm, you just send a signal from the navbar. Then it depends on scene by scene basis. But for other options, it's not going to be like this, I think. Because if you have an option that is specific to a scene, then it's going to force the class to be like done for that scene. which is the thing that I'm trying to avoid. So I think from on that part, on that line, I have to figure out if there is another way that is not overly complicated to set up the logic so that I can make it based on variables and functions. I think I have to do I'm gonna do the other class. I'm gonna do the generic class. Just gonna copy from this one. I'll go back here. The order is correct. Is maximize. Like I'm not gonna fully follow what ChatGPT said because there's an additional layer of complexity, which is I'm building the scenes of C++. So this making the signals work is more annoying, and I kind of forgot what I'm doing. So I create a navbar here, and I think I connect the signals outside here. And it has to be done this way so that it caches the signal connection on the file, on the scene file. And this is caching on the navbar. I think I'm also doing it outside. Yeah, connect navbar signal. So I create a function on the layout to connect the signals from outside. So I think I should do something similar to what ChatGPT is saying. Yeah, I think that this idea is good, but I should probably do it based on signals. So like I create a struct inside of the class that stores this info, and then it emits the signal based on the whatever name it is there. So I think that the name of the item is the menu bar add item. So I can create a hash map for the menu bars, I think. It has to be a dictionary so I can cache. I could create a hash map for the menu bars and then go over each one. So I'm thinking about like how to generalize this function here. So if I do a hash map on this, because in this case I only have one, but obviously I would want to be able to do as many as I want. So I think the navbar are each sections here. So file would be one, navbar, and edit would be another one, and so on. And then each one has these options, which are the pop-up menus. So I think hash map or dictionary for the menu bars based on the index. Then I have another function that connects the signal or adds a child to that navbar based on the index as well. But the problem is this function here. So like how to structure this function. I think I'm gonna stop streaming and I'm gonna think about this off stream. So I need to generalize this, figure out a way to generalize. So I think ideally I'm like I would initialize this class outside of this one, and then I would have a flexible way to initialize the main menu or the menu bars and the pop-up menu for each menu bar. Then associate whatever callback function. So that's the problem, I think. How to make a generic callback function on here, then put the logic based on the menu bars and file menus. Well, the thing is, Oh no, there's only one menu bar, I think. So the menu bar is everything here. Then each pop-up menu is like one section of the menu bar. So maybe it's easier than I was thinking. So we only need one menu bar. Then you do what GPT said there. Create a struct inside of the class. Then you save the metadata for each one, each pop-up menu. And instead of putting the logic on the class, you just emit a signal. Yeah, but then like this signal is not gonna work because it needs to be here. So I need to think about something else. I can do this approach of the callback, but I'm not really sure if it's very good. I think I understand now what I did here. I'm just gonna copy this. So I'm gonna remove the functionality and remove these other classes. Now the problem is, I think this one it wouldn't work, but I'm gonna test anyway. I'm gonna use this just as an example, but I think it's not gonna work because it's not gonna cache on the class. Unless, yeah, I think it, because I would have to make it, like, if I was running the scene the moment I build the scene, then I think it works. Because you don't need to cache on the scene file. But if you need to cache on the scene file, then I need to, like, the variant system is not going to support, because the variant only supports a vector of variance, unless I make this into an object, and then I make this pointer, a vector of menu item pointers. But I think it's probably not the best. So I can think about something that it might be like simpler. Mm. And it's kind of confusing as well. But I think the way that it works is you create there's only one menu bar. Then I create the pop-up menus outside by using these items here. So every time you, yeah, but it doesn't make sense because the options have to be on the menu, on the pop-up menus. Yeah, so it's creating like one pop-up menu for option, which doesn't make sense. Actually, it does make sense. I need to put here, so menu item, submenus. Like if I put this on add property, it's gonna complain because of the variant. So that's the problem I was talking about before. Yeah, so I'm gonna stop streaming now, and I'm gonna think about this. But I think I'm gonna go with this line. So I'm gonna try to think about a better way to, or a better data structure to use here. I think that ChatGPT's idea is to use this as each one of these is gonna be one main submenu, which would be one main pop-up menu. So like this, it would be the equivalent of the options here, and then the stuff that shows up on each one of them would be a value like this vector here. So the vector here are the options here, and the struct is the main option on each one. So yeah, you would initialize this with another value here if you want more options for each one, which would be the menu item as well. And then the class would cache this as a member variable, and then you would loop over on the setup. So you create only one menu bar which manages all of them, all of the options. Then you loop over the other ones. And for each pop-up menu is one section here. If they have the sub-menus, yeah, if you have sub-items, it loops over them and adds them. And then here I would put the signal as well to connect. So like when the option is clicked, it's gonna run whatever callback you subscribed there on the class. But the issue here is the variant. So I'm gonna try it right now, but I'm pretty sure that's gonna. I think the reason why it's showing this error is because you need to subscribe to ClassDB in order for ClassDB to understand that it can call that function. I think that's what's happening, I'm not really sure. But if we do this here, then it's gonna complain because of the variant, because Godot is gonna support the base types, and it doesn't support. I think it supports vector or variant, but if you want to make this value a variant, you need to inherit from object, and then use memnew to initialize each one, and then you make a pointer here, because an object pointer is a variant. Yeah, so it's based on these values here of the types. So those are the types that it supports, the variant supports. And the variant is the class used to to do the parsing and translate types basically. Yeah, so whenever this get type whatever or this like massive errors here show up, is usually because of the variant. You're doing something wrong with the variant. But it's still showing the other error. So maybe I'm doing something else wrong here. I'll try to remove the const. Oh, that's why. I don't know why I did it like this. And I think it's because, yeah, it's because of this signal. Hmm. I'll think about this later, but I guess I can just change the name because it's gonna be the same thing. Oh, I didn't comply. Thought I was gonna complain because of the name of the variable is the same name of the function. Just realized this now. Wanna run. And so it looks like it works. There's two menus. Nice. So it did work. So I'm gonna stop streaming now. I'm gonna take a break and then I'm gonna change the details. So I'm gonna think about this, if I can change this to a different data structure. And I'm gonna think about, I'm gonna fix the functions there to minimize and maximize correctly. And then change the style maybe. Or use I'm probably gonna try to find these icons here to use. Instead of using the thing that ChatGPT said there. But I think that this way is probably the best. So spend some time thinking about using a different data structure, and if I can't think about a simpler one, I'm just gonna use this one, and then probably I actually if it's the thing is I'm not really sure if it is working because I'm probably building the scene on C++. So I'm gonna test to see if it works based on the sync file. And then if it does, I'm just gonna use this one. Yeah. So I'm gonna stop streaming. Next time I'm gonna either study or review hardware resources, or I'm going to continue and I'm gonna study this class here, editor debugger node and editor log, to build this terminal doc node so that I have this thing here. So yeah, see you next time.